All right, you should be watching this video when you've gone through and used your test budget to produce a lot of traffic so that you hit your goals, plus your conversion metrics. Now it's time to try and hit your target CPAs. That's when you come in and you're going to trim the fat. And so this is the process I use to go through that to get down to that target CPA. So on a super high level, I want to identify the macro trends of like mobile versus desktop, figure out what's working. Second, I want to subtract before I add. There's so much to test. I want to weed out as many options as possible before I still go start expanding all my scale. And then finally, a lot of people are in a rush to scale too quickly. They don't give the algorithm enough data to pull from in order to scale effectively. So what I say is find the gold, let the data accumulate. If you've found something that's working and hitting your target CPA, give it a couple days of data just to make sure it continues to run at that level, and then start to work up the budgets. If you just double the budget or triple the budget or throw an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a day on there, the chances it gets thrown out of whack are very high. So find the data, let it accumulate, and then start to slowly scale it up. So there's really four things I want to evaluate when I'm looking to trim the fat. Mobile versus desktop, location and time parting, demographic info. This is my ad persona. I want to make sure I know what's converting best with the ad targeting options that I've got. And then finally confirm the Google data audiences that we want to test or continue to scale. So when it comes to mobile versus desktop, one is usually a clear winner. Eliminate the other from all campaigns, do it within the first week. If you can get them up and running effectively, let's say desktop is the one that you're working with, ramp up all of your desktop campaigns. You're going to hit a point where there's a plateau where it's going to be really difficult to profitably spend above a certain budget. Once you hit that, then you can go back and test out mobile. But at the beginning, try and focus on what's working right away. Second, location parting. Trim down quickly. So I always try and get the top states to provinces within the first 3 days, the top cities in the first 2 weeks, and the top zip codes if you can in the first month. The goal here is to have as much scale as possible. So don't get too dialed in too quickly. But you definitely want to go through and eliminate the bad performers. And so when I'm doing, I've worked with some groups on some higher fashion stuff. We very quickly get down to LA, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, Chicago, Boston. Those are kind of the areas that really appreciate high fashion, maybe sometimes in Texas. But you want to try and trim out the places that really aren't that interested in it. So I grew up in Wyoming. I can tell you right now, there's not going to be a lot of people interested in luxury fashion in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So it's really important to trim down to what's going to work so you can really spread your budget across the places where those people live. Next, time or day parting. You want to give this some time. You want to have at least 2 weeks of data. I would actually say more like 2 months. If you can figure out the days of the weeks within the first 2 weeks, great. Time of day, give it a good amount of data to go in and figure out, okay, if between midnight and 7 a.m. is not working, shut it off, turn it on at 8, and then let it run for the rest of the day up until, let's say, maybe 10 p.m., and then you turn it off after that. You'll be able to see these opportunities where your sales and your conversions are hot. Go through and build your time parting, and you can do it on a day-by-day basis. Give it enough time to get some real data. Make sure there's not any holidays, stuff like that. But once you get this in place, it becomes a lot more effective from your advertising. Next, we got to talk about demographic info, so age, gender, parental income, etc. Eliminate the worst performers right off the bat, and then I always focus on cross-testing. So 25 to 34, male and unknown, unknown, male and unknown, 25 to 34, unknown and male, 25 to 34, unknown and unknown. That's kind of the way I go through and I break these out to figure out what's working really well. Now, obviously, from your customer avatar, you should already be a little bit of a way down the path to know these are the people I really want to focus on. I'll give you an example with one of my big clients. We started testing out 35 to 64-year-old males with income over $50,000. And then what we did from there is we started to break down those campaigns. So it's 35 to 44, the income range and certain cities. And then we did it with 45 to 54 and 55 to 64. And after a couple months, we were able to go completely eliminate the 55 to 64 category because it just wasn't performing profitably. And then what was ironic with a different ad group, 55 to 64 worked really well and the other two didn't. So we were able to figure out the right match for each one of them based on targeting, ads, etc. So that's kind of the process I go through and do that. It takes time, but it's really important to get in there and make sure you're focused on the most profitable people. Finally, confirm your Google data audiences. So I check this after 30 days, compare with your research and adjust if necessary. As you're getting further into this, You're going to identify some other opportunities for new Google data audiences to really go scale your campaigns. And that's the goal. Keep going back to the well and figure out what else can I test, what else can I try.